Ever since I started this YouTube channel, I've had a lot of messages asking me for a bit of a rundown on my car, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to make a bit of video, and we'll go through everything that's on my car and why I like it so much. So yeah, we'll start at the front with the bar work, then I'll tell you about my turbo setup, what's on the inside, and then yeah, we'll go from there. So we'll start with the bar work, and all the bar work's custom. I made it all myself, and when I designed it, it was all made so there was no modifications needed. Apart from a quarter chop, all the bar work is bolt on, and that's so, yeah, if I ever sold it or wanted to put it on another car, it's just as easy to pull it off this and put it on the next car. It's got a worn high mount winch, Bow 2 motor, plus 76 free spool drum, giggle pin brake shaft. I did do a bit of a winch video because it is on 12 and 24 volt switchable, so there is a bit of a winch video that I'll link in the description. The bar picks up the factory mounts. So yeah, like I said, it's all just bolt on stuff. You have to bit of a cut in the grill to fit the winch, but other than that, slips straight on. Wraps around into a set of scrub rails, into rock sliders. The rock sliders have the U-bolted on the chassis, so they've got big folded up U-shaped clamps and bolts over the top of the chassis, so yeah, it all just slips on pretty easy. It's joined here with these roll cage joiners or Camberg joiners, so they look good. Nice clean way to join your bar work. This is the rear bar. It's got a cross bracing underneath, if you can see that. Swing away wheel carrier, and it is actually joined on the back door. So crack this, and it actually swings away with the door. So a good little mod to stop the spare wheel shaking around. Just a 3/4 length alloy roof rack, bolts onto the gutters. I don't use it too much, mainly just to carry the gazebo around when I need to, but I think in the future I might put a set of roof sliders on it and then mount that alloy roof rack to the roof sliders, keep it nice and light, and yeah, not much weight up on the roof. Under the bonnet is a probably the most underrated engine, I reckon. It's a TB42 turbo. Yeah, in my opinion, I reckon they're pretty underrated. It makes about 250 kilowatts at the hubs on 14 psi. It does have water methanol injection, and yeah, it absolutely flies. So I absolutely love it. I couldn't imagine any other motor in this, so this will definitely be staying. As far as the turbo setup goes, it's got a the RB20 forward facing plenum with custom intercooler piping, a 300 by 600 by 76 front mount cooler. It's got Bosch 550cc injectors with a ProFlow rise and rate fuel pressure reg here, with a Walbro 460 fuel pump in the tank. LS coils, a factory TD42 turbo manifold with the external gate welded on top of the manifold there. Turbosmart 38mm external gate, a Mamba TD06 20G turbo with a 0.73 or 10 centimeter rear housing. Yeah, it's quite a good turbo. It's bloody responsive, and yeah, tractors like a diesel, but it definitely revs like a petrol, so I absolutely love it. It's all powered by a Haltech 750 Elite. It uses a plug and play adapter harness, but then we've added in obviously the LS coils and a couple of little mods like the boost controller and a few other little bits and pieces. So yeah, it's been a reliable setup. I haven't had a problem since I put it on. As far as engine work goes, it's only had just a fresh head gasket put in there with some heavy duty valve springs. That's the only thing you really need to do these things. It's pushing 14 psi. Yeah, like I said, 250 kilowatts, and on 11 psi it makes 200 kilowatts, so it does go quite good. It's got a quick as TD fan. Not that I ever had any overheating issues, but it does have to pull through the intercooler, the aircon condenser and the radiator. So yeah, I put a big fan on it, and it does actually make a huge difference to intake temperatures and coolant temperatures. So that was definitely a worthwhile mod. Turbosmart blow-off valve. I have done some back-to-back testing on with blow-off valve and without a blow-off valve, and it is actually quite a little bit more responsive with the blow-off valve when you are on and off the throttle all the time. That the throttle response and how it picks up boost after stabbing the throttle on and off is actually, yeah, a fair bit better when you got a blow-off valve. Just a truck cylinder airbox, 4-inch in, 4-inch out. The stainless snorkel is made by Scotty, Chickerell Street Exhaust. It come up pretty nice. So everything under is, it's pretty basic, but it works well. Everything's been ceramic coated, the dump pipe, the turbo, and yeah, intake manifold. It's all been ceramic coated mainly to make it look good, but it does help a lot with heat. So everything under here kind of looks all right. It's a little bit dirty at the moment, but it cleans up all right, and yeah, everything works. So yeah, like I said, it does have water methanol injection. So this here is a line, goes into a jet pre-throttle body. Yeah, with pump pressure, boost pressure, it's about 500 cc. It's just a yeah, 1 mil jet. And in here, I'll show you, is the there's a gauge for it. So you can just turn it on and off. And yeah, on, off, when it's on, it's high boost, 14 psi. You turn it off and it's 11 psi. And obviously there's fuel and timing changes to the maps in there. So it actually works surprisingly well. The pumps here for it, lines through the floor, and yeah, this part of the tank is the water methanol, holds about 18 litres. So for something like this where you don't need it on all the time, that lasts a weekend, no problem. So yeah, it does have a lot of benefits, like octane enhancement, cylinder cooling, air temp reduction, reduced exhaust temps, carbon removal, and port cleaning. So it is actually good stuff. And yeah, especially on hot days, you know, when your cylinder temp rises, and then you might potentially get a bit of knocking, or you have a bad batch of fuel and same thing, get a bit of knocking. The water meth can, yeah, iron all that out. And then yeah, as far as the tune goes, we can feed more boost, more timing into it. So it is actually, especially for these motors, is actually a good modification. And yeah, I have it on both me TB turbos, so it is good stuff. Yeah, sitting in the driver's seat, I've got my 12 24 volt switch, which not be able to see there. 24 12. My winch power, air free spool, winch in and out, compressor, front locker, and then yeah, front and rear light bars, which it only has the front one on at the moment. I haven't got the back one on. Yeah, there's 3 gauge setup, obviously my volt gauge and this Haltech gauge, which displays anything that the computer displays. So that's actually not a bad thing, especially being a 52mm gauge. And then yeah, obviously the water meth gauge. And back in the back here, obviously the water meth pump, the compressor, the 12 24 volt switching box. Again, I did do a bit more of an in-depth video on that the other week, comparing 12 to 24 volt in the winch, so check that out in the description. Yeah, the 2 batteries, 2 Optima D31Ms, water tank made by Scotty at Chickerell Street Exhaust. Yeah, like I said, water meth in this part, there's just water in this part. It's about 40-ish litres, and yeah, I just have a hose out the side here. That's actually awesome. So you always got water on tap right there at your door. Leave a thing of soap there, and you always wash your hands quick. You don't have to dig out water or soap or anything like that. So that's a good mod. Come around the back of the car. It's just I did have twin drawers in here, but I had a fuel pump problem once and I couldn't get to it. So yeah, only the single drawer. Basically just carries spares. It's full with spares. Same in the wing, spares. Other than that, nothing too exciting in the back here. So around the passenger side in the back, I've got the Waco in here, the 65 litre I think it is. I made this fridge mount, just picks up the old seat mounts, and then the compressor here, the Super Center twin cylinder one, just for pumping up tyres, a couple of air hoses and that here. That actually works quite well, not using your locker and free spool compressor to pump the tyres up. So the travel buddy under here, it's a little bit of a pain to get to sometimes, but it's out of the way and not much else can really go there, so it is a pretty good spot for it. All right, under the car I've got a GU front diff. You can see that it's been braced, matched up with a GU steering box. It's a pretty basic modification in these. Fox steering dampener, superior panhard, and same with the tie rod and drag link. It's got a new style ARB front locker and RCV chromoly axles. As far as the hubs and that goes, all standard hubs. And yeah, like I said, Exceedi Safari Tough heavy duty clutch, standard gearbox, standard transfer case, standard tail shafts. They're all, it's the Patrol really is a bulletproof driveline. You don't need to do much to the driveline at all. Just a shimmed up LSD in the rear, standard axles, 4:1 diff ratios, and yeah, it seems to go pretty good. It's a very bulletproof setup. There's not a great deal you really need to do to them for something like this. Suspension setup is the Superior 2.0 shocks. I rate them pretty high. Best value for money shock you can get, I reckon. Superior springs, 4-inch in the front, 3-inch in the back. Race bred hybrid arms. I have snapped standard radius arms before, but yeah, I love the idea of having like an 80 series style drop box and bush up that end. The mushroom bushes on the Patrol arms, they don't really last long, and they're a pain in the ass when they flog out, and you've got to contend with constant knocking every time you drive it, especially if you're nowhere near home to fix it. I made my own control arms, upper and lower, plus 14 on the bottom. It's got a Super Pro 24mm heavy duty sway bar. That made a huge difference. Yeah, the standard one's like 16mm, so yeah, 24mm, and I only run a rear sway bar. It did make a good difference actually. I'll quite rate one of them. The next stage up would be like a torsion bar setup, but they're not very fun to set up in a wagon, so that's just what this one's going to have. And probably one of the better mods I've done. It's a pretty simple one. Factory bump stops. I did have them extended like 80 series style bump stops in there, but I did change back to the factory ones, and it's definitely been such a big improvement. Obviously the suspension, the maximum amount of up travel you can get and the minimal amount of bump stop interference you can get, the better your car will ride. So I'd rather have a shorter hard bump stop and maximize the suspension up travel rather than having a long bump stop, and then especially them 80 series ones, they compress so much you end up with a lot of uncontrollable suspension dampening. So definitely the factory bumps are the go. It actually just transformed the car. It made it that much better, and I highly recommend that one. Another good modification I've done, hopefully you can see, I braced the rear coil hats. So bit of tube here, welded to this cross member, goes up, welded to the edge of the coil hat, and down to the rear cross member where the fuel tank mounts. So yeah, I've done both sides, and it's definitely a good mod. Obviously everyone knows that the coil hats end up breaking, so it definitely is worth doing something like this. I thought this was the easiest way, and it kind of looks good, and gives me something to mount the reservoirs to for the rear shocks. Wheels and tyres, 35-inch Maxxis razors, and I definitely rate them highly. I've tried heaps of tyres, and as far as an all-round tyre goes, these are, in my opinion, the best on the market. I've had them in a 37 and a 35 now, and they're the only tyre I've bought twice, so I definitely highly rate them. The rims, 6MB8 neg 25 no-name alloys. No idea what their name are, just a China lock, I suppose. I love them. they're my favourite alloy, and for the price you pay for them, I'd nearly have 5 sets of them. Yeah, I quite like them. Yeah, I think that's pretty much most of it. Long range fuel tank, that's definitely another good mod. 150 odd litres under the back. Saves carrying jerry cans, so that is definitely something worth doing too. As far as future modifications go, not really sure. I'm pretty happy with the car. Definitely this light bar is going on the roof rack, and I've got a rear light bar to go on the back of the roof rack too. That's probably coming pretty soon. I reckon the bull bar, winch and sliders will go, and I'll make them again because I've got something a bit more fancy to go on the front. Yeah, other than that, the car really is bulletproof. I haven't really had a drama at all. I've had this car for probably 4 years, I reckon, and sort of the last 2 years I've been doing a fair bit of driving in it, so it is, yeah, realistically bulletproof. Never had a drama with it. I'm quite happy with it. It climbs hills pretty well. I've driven stuff that I never thought I'd drive in something like this, so yeah, it definitely works well, and it won't be going anywhere. If you want to know anything else about the car, or you want me to go into more detail about anything, just send me a message. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone about it. Yeah, that's a pretty basic run over in my car. Pretty basic video this week. We do have a couple drives planned in the future, so keep an eye out for them. But yeah, if you made it this far, drop a comment, drop a like, whatever you want to do, share it around. And other than that, we'll see you on the next one.